At time with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Footy talk. Alright. On the radio, let's talk footy. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. I'm your host Jordan Fasso, and today we are continuing the season preview series with the St Kilda Saints footy club. Let's go Saints, come on. Hopefully this is the year where they break out of AFL purgatory, but I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately. Let's go through their season last year to start off. I think, they went 11-12 on the season, had some form in the back end of the year when, they probably didn't have business winning games, and they won a couple decent ones. They won one against Geelong late in the year, so, I think that they sort of have this, I don't know what it is, but when we talk about AFL purgatory, we instantly think of this club. Their insistence on being mediocre is honestly becoming kind of commendable. Like, I don't know if he'd be able to finish in that range year after year if he tried, but in all seriousness though, it was a bit disappointing from the Saints last year after they finished 6th in 2023 and had a final against GWS at the G, and they had a chance to win that game as well, and it's been a bit of a fall off since then, unfortunately, under Ross. And I think they had some nice players coming through the pipeline who just sort of stagnated last year. Had Mitch Owens and Marcus Windhager in particular, who just didn't really take much of a leap after their promising 2023. And I think, some of the senior guys as well had pretty disappointing years. Obviously, Max King and Jack Sinclair, who's probably had a bit of a down year, maybe a bit of a victim of his own standards in that regard. But Hunter Clark as well just fell out of favour with Ross Lyon as well. He just wasn't able to get a game consistently, someone who I've liked for a long time. But there's just, disappointing year all around, I think, for the Saints. They've had some issues with guys staying on the park as well. Of course, Liam Henry going down earlier in the year. After I think it was his first or second game, he missed some time after that, and then Max King of course as well, but the combination of the young guys failing to progress, some of the senior guys not living up to their expectations, it just sort of that's how they got to finishing 12th on the ladder last year, and with not really much of, let me clarify as well, that was a pretty optimistic 12th. I don't think that they were the 12th best team all year. I think that they just won some games late in the year that sort of bumped that up a little bit for them. But I think on the flip side of being a bit negative, but I think Nazai Wanganeen-Malira Nas was a really bright spot for them. Showed how he's one of the absolute best halfbackers in the league, and they've got a really good backline back there with him and Sinclair and Wilkie as well. So I think that that's not necessarily the issue in their team list at the moment. But Rowan Marshall as well, proved why he's the second or third best ruckman in the league at the moment, and Cal Wilkie as well showed again why he's probably a top 10 defender in the league as well. So I think that Darcy Wilson was a great find for them. He had a great first year, and I think Anthony Caminetti as well showed he has a place in the best 22 as that sort of hybrid ruck, key forward and backup ruck option. So overall I think it just wasn't enough progression from the list. As a whole, it didn't feel like they had a really cohesive unit out there at any time, and that's sort of how you end up where they did. And then coming into the off season, they had we'll go through the ins and outs. Coming into the team, they had Eamon Armstrong, James Barrett, Hugh Boxall, Harry Boyd, Jack Carroll, Alex Dodson, Jack McRae, Patrick Said, Alex Tyroo, who, if anyone's not aware, his nickname is the Flying Viking, which could be the best nickname in the league, and Toby Travaglia. So, the last two of their top picks in the draft back to back, I think. And then, on the outside, we have Matthew Allison, Josh Battle, of course, heading to the Hawks, Riley Bonner delisted, Tom Campbell, Brad Crouch retired, Jack Hayes, Ollie Houghton, Tim Membry going across as a delisted free agent to the Pies, Ben Patton, similar to the Swannies, Seb Ross, great stalwart for the Saints. A little sort of like St Kilda's version of Dyson Heppel in a way. I guess Seb Ross, he just was there for all the after their grand finals, he sort of made his name after they made those appearances, and was just sort of in the team when they just weren't really doing much over the last sort of 10 or so years, and unfortunately for him, retired without much success. And Then the last one that left the list was James Van S. So that's the ins and outs. Let's get into the expectations for the Saints, and it's looking like another year in AFL purgatory, so to speak, and the one thing that I really hope that doesn't lead to is them losing Nazar Wanganeen-Malira. I hate when the teams cultivate good young talent and they do leave, but at the same time, for his sake, it sucks for the team's perspective and the fans, but I get it if he wants to go back to Adelaide, or if any player wants to leave for whatever reason, they're entitled to do so. So I just hope that he, for the Saints' sake, he doesn't move. But at the end of the day, it's their fault for not creating an environment he wants to stay in. So I think that they've at least made a clear decision this year to play some of the kids. They have guys like Riley Bonner, Brad Crouch, Tim Membry, Seb Ross. All those guys were getting regular games last year. They're all out of the door, who were taking spots at times last year from guys who you might want to see develop a bit more, especially when you're in that sort of the realm of the ladder that they find themselves in year after year. You want us to be able to blood some young guys and hit on them, and they've got enough experience in the team with Brad Hill still, and Cal Wilkie and Sinclair and Roel Marshall, where it's not like their young guys are going to be fed to the wolves or anything. So I think it is time to turn over the list and see who can sort of claim a regular spot amongst the younger group of guys who are a bit more untried, I guess, at this point, and see who can perform at that level. I do think that's all the Saints can really hope for this year. Just find some players that can contribute in the following year in 2026 and make sure that they get everyone healthy for the second half of the year. That way they can sort of start to envision what they might need in the off-season from the draft and which players are keepers versus, potential, guys that are potentially going to get delisted. And the reason I'd expect them and urge them to take that approach, or at least suggest that they take that approach, is that they're just so injured to start the year as well. They've already got Liam Henry injured, Dougal Howard's injured if they decide to play him down back, Max King as well injured, Mitch Owens, Philippou as well, Cooper Sharman, Alex Taru, and Dan Butler are all expected to miss the start of the year, and some of those are really important structural players, and Alex Taru in particular, I hope they want to see how he fits into the team. So I think that if they are able to get healthy at some point during the year, then they can sort of see what the core of players that they do have actually really quite like the amount of talent they have through it. You got Cal Wilkie, Nazaya, Jack Sinclair, Rowan Marshall, Jack Steele, Max King, Mitch Owens, Mateus Philippou, Liam Henry, Darcy Wilson, and Marcus Windhager. You can look and you can sort of see in the back half of the year, if they do get healthy, that you can see what they need to fill in around that core, and what pieces that they should be trying to target in the off season, and what pieces they should try and mix and match with guys they got on the list as well. And the draftees also hopefully become a part of that group as the year goes on. That sort of core that I'm talking about. I think Toby Travaglia is looking very good. I really like the idea of playing him on a wing and seeing how he goes. And that group is actually, as I said, a really solid core. If they can all sort of stay healthy, I think they do need a bit of help through the middle of the ground though, which I think ultimately limits what their forward line has been able to accomplish at this point. So I hope we get Travaglia in there to finish the year at least if he gets healthy, and they can sort of start to see if he can be a bit of a point of difference for the Saints in the middle. And I'm sort of leaning into the idea that I don't think it'll be a bad idea for the Saints to sort of soft tank this year. I don't expect them to be able to get near the 8 with how competitive the league is at the moment. So, playing some competitive footy still, but, shutting down some guys right at the end of the year could be a better play for them in order to, sink down the ladder a little bit. I think, tanking is generally not good en masse for the competition, but in case of the Saints, I think getting a really high draft pick while still seeing what sort of structures work with that good core that I'm sort of speaking of could really pay dividends for them. And I think that if they do get that really high draft pick and potentially snag a free agent or two with the war chest that they're going for, looks like Tom De Koning might be heading there. Let's hopefully if they can actually snag someone. But I think that if they're able to do that, blood some of the young guys this year, then there's no reason why I don't think they can make the leap next year into the finals. I just think the ceiling is pretty low on this team if they were to push their chips in and try to try to make a finals run this year, which is why I'm sort of suggesting that soft tank. Like they're not gonna win a premiership. They're probably not gonna win a final either. So, what's the point in like going all out when your team's not ready to compete at that level? And I think that Saints fans would agree with me. Like there's, as much as you want your team to be competitive, like this team has been like just half competitive for the best part of 15 years now, and I think that there's just there are just a few players on this list who are not necessarily list cloggers, but just have no real upside. Your Dan Butlers, your Jack Higgins, Zach Jones, Paddy Dow, those type of players. I think that they're fine as pure depth players, but I just hope that they don't necessarily get games over some of the young guys who have shown a bit in the preseason and in the past as well. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with the Saints heading into this year, and the mindset that I'd probably want them to take is just to pick and choose the lineups based on like looking forward into the future, I think, a bit more, and rather than just trying to just keep on this cycle of just being mediocre year after year. I think that you really need to find some young players who are going to stand up for the next decade, rather than like who might be there for the next 3 or 4 years contributing at an okay level. And I think that's fine to say. I think that, as I said, tanking en masse isn't great for the competition, and I'm not suggesting they go all out tank. I'm just saying, like, it comes to the end of the year and they're sort of in that 12th position again, like sit Cal Wilkie, sit Jack Sinclair, don't get him injured, and sit Rowan Marshall for a few games as well if you can get everyone on board and just sink down to 15th or 16th on the ladder and get a high pick, especially with Tassie coming in the next couple of years. You want to get maximise this window of talent that while you're down the bottom of the ladder, and while the Saints aren't, while I think they might be primed to jump up a bit next year after the injuries and stuff that they might have to deal with at the start of the year. I think that's just a generally a solid play for the Saints in particular. Just on field this year, though, I like the toughness of the mids in general. I think they found something with Liam Stocker going inside last year, and also adding Jack McRae gives them someone skilled around the contest, which I think they definitely lacked at times. Consistently across his career, Jack McRae has been at least above average and at times elite as well in his disposal efficiency, and whilst accumulating, a heap of touches as well. So obviously the more touches you get, the least efficient you're going to get. So the ability for him to be, above or elite in that category is pretty commendable for Jack McRae. And, the rest of the midfield is sort of like the stalwarts. Liam Stocker's okay by foot, but, Jack Steele and Marcus Windhager in particular are below average or to average. So I think that, adding Jack McRae in this regard is that, like, although he's like one of those older guys who you might look at as taking a spot out of the list, I think that they definitely need that in terms of a competitive advantage this year on field. Just gives them a different look that they necessarily haven't had over the last few years in the midfield. And I think that, he doesn't solve one issue that the Saints midfield has been critiqued on at times, and being, sort of one pace. You've got Steele, Windy, Philippou as well, and Crouch last year. Obviously he's retired now, but I think that those guys, and then you're adding Jack McRae to that group, they're all still pretty one-paced midfield. Hard-nosed, but one-paced, I think. And I would like them to sort of have a bit more of an experiment. They've tried at times putting Jack Sinclair through there. I don't think he's necessarily like a midfielder. I think his best position is a half-back, but I would like to see them play Nazai Wangan and Milera through the middle a little bit more this year. And same as Garcia, I think he's been good at times. And Liam Henry too is another one who they definitely experimented with, playing in the centre at times. And I think there's something there to those guys getting cracks through the middle, just to give them a bit of speed and through the guts. I think that something that they've needed for a while, and this is the year to experiment if I'm the Saints, and see what you can sort of salvage a little bit based on the idea that this season sort of sunk a bit already with the amount of injuries they've got. They're never going to get blown out of the park in the middle, given just how good some of those core guys are at in the contest. Like they're and with Rowan Marshall, of course, in the centre, they're not going to get absolutely blown off the park in the midfield. But I think that just without like that different shift in gears of different types of players that they can put through there, I just don't think they're ever going to dominate other teams either. So it's a bit of a waste when you have one of the premier ruckmen of the comp, when the rest of the midfield just quite can't really help lift that water as well out of the midfield. So I'd be looking for them to make a few decisions this year in regards to just like getting a few different looks to come through there for them. And then Max King, I think he's always a bit of a talking point with the Saints, so this would be, I definitely can't, do a whole Saints season preview without talking about him per se, but it's going to be a really big year for Max. I think I've been a fan based on his potential for a while now, but that's sort of what it's been. It's just been potential, and it's been much discussed how he's let himself down with some of his work ethic at times, and I think this year we need to see if he can play well despite whatever the team is able to produce, and I don't think he should be getting down on himself or showing bad body language again this year. I think that as long as he competes, he's doing his role. So Nick Larkey is the sort of poster child for this, where Nick Larkey's been able to contend as a Coleman Medal favourite in a much worse side over the last few years. So in my opinion, there is no reason Max King should not be able to do the same, as he is a more naturally gifted player as well than Nick Larkey. Obviously they're both huge guys, but Max King's ability to get the ball at the highest point is something that Nick Larkey doesn't necessarily have, nor the agile sort of nature that Max has on ground. I think that Max King a few years ago was sort of like what everyone thought. Everyone thought Max King was going to be what Sam Darcy sort of has developed into now, that agile, key forward who is just massive as well and is just unbeatable in the air. And unfortunately, he just has not progressed into that stage for the Saints yet. And keen to see if he can. I'd just be keen for him to just have a real crack this year, regardless of how the Saints are going as a team, and hopefully he can stay healthy as well after this first little setback with his knee already to start the season, which of course is cause for concern for Saints fans, and they don't want to hear that. He's already had a lot of knee issues over his time, so hopefully this is just a minor one and he can get back to playing some good footy. And then, some players to watch for the Saints. I think, I sort of talked a little bit about him to start, but Toby Travaglia, I think he's, a really smart player from what I've seen. He's a half-backer by nature, I think, with the potential to end up in the midfield. And I would put him on the Jordan Dawson timeline, where, Jordan Dawson at his time at the Swans played down back, was as a half-backer, would set things up with his kicking ability. And I think that Toby Travaglia has the ability to be that type of player to eventually shift into the midfield as a taller sort of option there. And I think he is a comparable player to Jordan Dawson with his intercept game and defensive ability to launch from the defensive 50 as well, launch the attack, that is. So, I think the Saints are definitely in need of some quality within the midfield, and although they got a bit of shit in the draft for drafting 2 defenders, I think that the idea is that this guy is not going to be a defender in the long run. I think he's going to be potentially the next great sort of Saint midfielder, and hopefully they hit on this one. I think he looks pretty promising. He looks like a really smart guy from the clips I've seen, and I think that they found a good one here. And Hugh Boxall is another one that I'm going to keep an eye on. He showed a fair bit in the pre-season match against Carlton in particular. He attended centre bounces at times. He fended off Paddy Cripps as well, put him on the ground. So, he just looks super tough out there, and you don't see that necessarily from first-year players. So I think that sort of clip alone made the rounds on socials, and I think, it's worth a look at anyway. I don't necessarily know how much he's going to play or how consistently, but I think that, based on those few clips, it looks pretty exciting for him to start the year. And the other one is Liam O'Connell. He's an Irishman who, really caught my eye as well in the pre-season. He looks very at home early in his career, considering, he's just come across and the game's pretty new to him. So his touch by foot is really good, which is exciting, given he's only just gotten the oval ball into his hands. So I think as well he got to some really dangerous spots in his first practice match, read the game pretty well for someone who's relatively new to it, which should be pretty exciting for Saints fans, and it could be something out of nothing when you find an Irishman that's able to contribute to the team early on. So I think with that sort of being said, I think that's where I'm at with the Saints. As I said, not necessarily expect them to do too much in terms of competition this year. I've got them ranked 14th in my power rankings heading into the year, and also 14th after I've done the fixture projections as well. So yeah, look, I think that, as I said, if they're in that sort of 10 to like 13, 14 range, I wouldn't mind the Saints just shutting down a few guys at the end of the year and getting one of the sort of pointy end picks in the draft. I don't know what the draft quality is necessarily this year, but having your pick of the litter and filling a need is something that I think the Saints need to really, really focus on and get some quality in the door again. And then, as I said, they've got the war chest to spend, and you get another top pick after 2 back-to-back top picks this year, and Travaglio and Alex Taru, and then. As I said, they've already hit on Darcy Wilson. They've hit on Zaya Wanganeen-Malira. They've shown the ability to draft pretty well from what I've seen. So I trust them going to the draft. It's just that they haven't had the amount of top-end talent that you probably want for a team that's been sort of out of the finals picture for the best part of 10 or so years. So I think that, this is the year where you do a bit of a soft tank at the end of the year if you're the Saints, and maybe drop a few games that you might be a chance in at the back half of the year, and that sort of goes against the competitive sort of aspect of footy. But I think that it's for Saints fans. I don't know. I think they're pretty sick of being in that cycle of AFL purgatory, and if it takes one more year of potentially to set up some sustained success, with the addition of another young pick and some free agents or trades or whatever they can muster up, then I think it makes it a lot easier to stomach. Anyway, thanks for listening to that one, guys, and keen to watch the Saints this year, and they're always close to my heart. So up the Saints.